Hey guys, and welcome back into the channel. I didn't make a video on this like I had hoped to, but it would have been a 1-2 minute video anyways. What I wanted to say though is I'm going to be starting something new here on this channel right now, here today. I'm going to be previewing NFL teams. I'm going to be doing it hopefully for the next 32 days. I'm hoping to do one a day for the next 32 days. Now there may be days where for whatever reason I can't do one or I miss a couple days, and if that does happen, then I will probably follow up with, a couple the following day to make up for the day I missed. But so that's the goal, to do one a day for the next 32 days. And we're going to start out with the New England Patriots here today. Obviously, the defending AFC East champions. They won the division last year with a 12-4 record. Were defeated by the eventual Super Bowl champion Denver Broncos in the AFC Championship. And were denied their opportunity to repeat as champions. And, this is a team that every single year, basically my entire life, they've been a team that coming to the season you expected to contend, expected to be right there at the top, and really it hasn't changed going into this year. Obviously, I'm sure anybody that's watching this video knows about the Brady suspension, that whole situation with Deflategate, him being suspended for the opening 4 games of this season. I'm a huge Tom Brady fan. He's my favorite player in the NFL, so I have my own opinions on that. I'm not going to get into it in this video, but regardless, he'll be missing for the first 4 games of the season. Jimmy Garoppolo, the young man in his 3rd year out of Eastern Illinois, is going to be replacing him. Has no experience in the NFL, and it's going to be a test without a doubt. But you got Bill Belichick leading the charge. He's going to be calling, controlling what he does. I'm sure the plays that will be called for him will be, things that he can handle. Belichick's not going to put him in a situation where, he's uncomfortable, or put him in a situation where he's not able to handle it. And, a guy like Belichick, you got to believe that if he didn't think that Garoppolo had it within him to handle the situation, they would have went out in the offseason and brought someone in, some veteran. Whether it was a guy who really was, any good or not, I don't know, because, those guys are hard to find. Half the teams don't even have starting quarterbacks that are good. But I got to believe that if he didn't think this young guy could handle the spotlight, he would have brought in someone with more experience to handle the 4-week job. So, gives me a reason to believe that Garoppolo can't handle this. And, looking at their schedule, you got one tough game starting against Arizona, but then you got home games against Miami, Buffalo. You got home games 3 out of the 4 weeks. So, with Garoppolo on the field, being at home, a reasonably good defense, a good running game, good receiving corps, you got to think, in my opinion, Garoppolo can handle it. I don't know about that opening game in Arizona, but 3 out of 4 at home is definitely, is a good thing for that team. The fact of the matter is also, despite Garoppolo, they have a ton of depth at the running back position. I mean, Dion Lewis last year was absolutely ridiculous. He was so explosive. He was great in the passing game. He was so elusive. He's one of the quicker backs in the league. And this guy kind of came out of nowhere. And, that's what the Patriots tend to do. They find these players, and they stick them in, and they become stars, or at least, at the very worst, average, solid NFL players. And Dion Lewis looked to be on a course to be one of the best running backs in the league last year, statistically. And then in Week 9, he tore his ACL, as so many players in the NFL do, and it cost him the rest of the season. And, I think a lot of people have forgotten about him because he came out of nowhere, had such a great start of the season, but then was gone the second half of the season and was gone in the playoffs. But people need to, get their minds right and remember this guy, because this guy's going to be back this year, and I expect him to be great, especially early on with Garoppolo playing the first 4 weeks. He's going to get a heavy workload at the beginning of the season. And then you got LeGarrette Blount, also the starting, the backup running back, but I'm sure they'll split duties. And I like the combination of the two because they're so different. LeGarrette's a pounder, a bruiser, but is also elusive despite his size. And Dion Lewis, like I said, is so fast, so quick. I just like the combo of them two because they're very different. James White, another guy last year that got a chance because LeGarrette Blount went down in Week 14. James White was rushed into the starting spot. Didn't have a lot of success running the ball, but did do a really good job in the passing game, as so many of the New England running backs do. So those 3 at the running back position, I really like the depth, and I like that each one brings a different thing to the table, and I really think that could benefit the team, especially early on. Now to the receiving corps. Some people might not agree, and actually, if you're watching this video, I really do want you to comment down below. Even if you disagree, I'm not a person that is offended if you disagree. I'm not claiming to know everything. I have a channel, and you don't. That doesn't mean I know any more than you do. You may know more than I do, especially if you are a big-time Patriots fan. But just looking at the names on paper and the reading I've done about the team, I got to believe this, when Brady returns, this has got to be one of the best receiving corps that he's ever had in his entire career. I mean, you got Julian Edelman. You got Danny Amendola. Those two are ridiculous in the slot. Great receivers. So quick, so elusive. Great at getting open. Brady's eyes, Brady is just, especially with Edelman, it's always been a great sync with him, and I expect that to continue. Then you got the two-headed monster at tight end back now. You lost Hernandez a few years back. Now you add Martellus Bennett, who 2 years ago was one of the top 5 tight ends in football statistically. So you got Gronkowski, who's the best, paired with Martellus, who's top 5 potential. And when you pair him with Tom Brady, you got to think he could be a top, easily top 3 tight end in the league statistically with Tom Brady. Now, maybe statistically he probably won't be because him and Gronk are going to share touches. But Bennett's a great receiving tight end, and him and Gronk bring back a two-headed monster at that position. And we saw in the past when Brady has 2 huge tight ends that can catch the ball like these two can, it makes the offense that much better. It adds a different dimension to the offense. So with Amendola, Edelman, Gronk, Bennett, those 4 are ridiculous. And they add Chris Hogan, another little white slot receiver that if he can get open, Brady's going to find him. He likes working with those receivers. And, so that maybe adds a 5th guy. And the guy I want to talk about in this video is 4th-round pick Malcolm Mitchell out of Georgia. He's an SEC receiver. Was a guy who probably would have been drafted higher than the 4th round if it wasn't for a torn ACL a few years back. Kind of limited his production at Georgia, kept him off the field at times. He missed a season and a half. But this guy was healthy last year, had a great year. And I really think that he's going to thrive in this offense. He's a guy who in college, his last 2 years, had 4 drops. Now, granted, it was half his junior year and his senior year, but he had 4 drops in 2 years, and he was one of their top receiving options in Georgia. So he's a guy who's got really good hands, and if you got good hands and you're with Brady, that serves well for you because, you're going to get open. If you can get yourself open, you're going to get the ball. He's going to find the opening target, and if he's able to catch the ball like he did in college, there's no reason to think this guy can't be a breakout star for this team. And he's also a guy who will play outside. New England's filled with slot receivers. Amendola, Hogan, even Edelman can be a slot receiver. So you got, all these little slot receivers, and you add a guy in Mitchell who is only 5'11", so he's not an overly big guy, but he's a guy with breakout speed, and I see him playing on the outside, and you heard it here first. I expect Malcolm Mitchell to be one of the breakout players for New England this season. As far as the line, you got Nate Solder returning, one of the best left tackles in football. He returns out to left tackle, which allows Sebastian Vollmer to move back to right tackle, where he is much more equipped. And those two on the tackle positions are, one of the best in the league, I would say. Brian Stork at center is a good young player, and I think this offensive line, just with the return of Solder alone, improves it, dramatically. This is a good offensive line that should be able to protect Brady. But like I said, the tackles are where this offensive line is got the most depth. And if the offensive tackles go down injury, it's going to be just like last year where the line's going to struggle. Those two, Solder and Vollmer, have to stay healthy for this line to be good. Defensively, you got Jabal Sheard, who was one of the best players on the defense last year, really out of nowhere. He only played in 13 games last year. Actually only got 1 start, but really in the playoffs he was good. He had 8 sacks. He had 4 forced fumbles. As a guy who came from Cleveland, so not many people knew about him, including me, but he really stepped it up last year. On the depth chart, he's listed as a starter at defensive end. You got Chris Long coming from St. Louis, a guy who's trying to be rejuvenated coming into New England, as so many guys have been in the past. He had only 3 sacks last year, but the real thing with him is he's getting older. In the first 6 years of his career, he didn't miss 1 game. Not 1 game the first 6 years of his career. But in the last 2 years, he's missed 14. So the injury bug has struck him as he's gotten older. And, he's not being, at least from the depth chart and barring injury, he's not being asked to do too much for the Patriots. Sorry, guys, I had to pause the video there for a second, so I'm not exactly sure where I left off. My mom walked in behind me, and I had to freaking pause the video. But I was talking about Chris Long, and like I said, he missed 14 games the last 2 years. He's not being asked to do too much, honestly, but he's got to stay healthy, and, he adds depth to the team, and at the very worst, he's not what he used to be, but he's still an average. As far as a sub, he's pretty good no matter what. You add Terrence Knight into the defense. Big guy's going to clog up the middles. Good against the run. Last year, rookie Malcolm Brown, and now coming into his second year, was really good against the run as well. So those two at the tackle position are good. They got depth in Joe Valeno and Alan Branch, other two guys that can stop the run. Rob Ninkovich at the other defensive end took a step back last year. He's also getting older. He's 32 now, but he's still a guy who gets to the quarterback. He's still an above-average defensive end. And behind him, you got the last year's high pick, Trey Flowers, who I think is another breakout candidate. Is extremely fast at the defensive end position, and I envision him getting to the quarterback quite a bit. He needs to take a step forward this year on the defensive end, at the defensive end position for the Patriots. Now to the linebacking corps, which is honestly, and it has been for a few years, except they consistently have injuries at that position, but that was Gerard Mayo, who's now gone. You have Jamie Collins and Dante Hightower, who, as a unit, the two of them are probably, I would say, top 5 as far as linebacking corps in football between them two. I mean, you got Jamie Collins, who's just a lethal hitter, one of the best hitting linebackers in football. He actually rated out 5th best in the NFL at the linebacker position last year. And then you got Dante Hightower, who's another guy who lays the smack down on a lot of people. And especially if you run little slants across the middle, he's always there to light you up. He rated 7th in the NFL last year at the linebacker position. So you got 2 of the top 7 linebackers in the NFL as far as what they're rated defensively. And those two are very good, but they got to stay healthy. And then at the other linebacker position, you don't have Gerard Mayo anymore. You got Shea McClellan, who has been on my hometown Bears for a long time, was a first-round pick, never quite lived up to his potential. They tried to switch positions with him at one point from defensive end to the outside linebacker, and it just didn't work with him. But he's, like I said before, Patriots find these guys that have this untapped potential that they couldn't open up. They come to New England and they become great. So I wouldn't be surprised if Shea McClellan comes here. It becomes an above-average outside linebacker. I just wouldn't. I'm not saying it's for sure going to happen, but it's the type of players that New England gets, and they become great players. So we'll see. Either way, he's got Collins and Hightower with him at the linebacker position. So regardless of what he does, the linebacking corps is extremely good in New England. And then you got the secondary. It looks strong. You got Malcolm Butler, who had the big play in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. Last year, he really did prove with the departure of Darrelle Revis that he could be a number 1 corner for this team. He did a good job against number 1 receivers, and I expect him to just get better this year. He's matched up with Logan Ryan at the other cornerback position, who not many people know about, but he's one of the most sure tacklers in the NFL. He's actually, in his entire career, has only missed 8 tackles in 178 career attempts. So, 170 tackles, 8 misses. That's pretty damn sure-handed. It's about as sure-handed as it gets. So, you got those two at the cornerback position. You got one great cover corner, one great as far as making sure he gets the tackles. So those two combined are really good. At the safety position, you got Devin McCourty, who's been around the block for a long time. We all know who he is. He's great in the secondary. He was rated 7th among safeties last year. And then you got Patrick Chung, another guy who's a big hitter. Likes to play up towards the line of scrimmage a lot. Does a good job covering tight ends. He's really big, really strong. He was rated 6th last year among safeties. So you got the 7th and 6th rated safeties in the league. So just like at the linebacker position where they had 2 top 7 rated linebackers, they have 2 of the top 7 rated safeties. So, this secondary looks to be really good. And I expect, especially the corner position, to keep improving. Chung and McCourty are getting older, but we haven't seen any sense of a drop-off with them. So we have no reason to expect that they're going to decrease in what's the word I'm looking for? In overall quality. You wouldn't expect them to drop off because we haven't seen them drop off. So barring injury, I expect them to continue to be good. And then at the slot corner position, you got Cyrus Jones, the young second-round pick out of Alabama. Enough said, he's out of Alabama, so you got to expect that he's going to be good. He's a guy who, honestly, from what I read from a lot of people, was drafted higher than most people had said he would be. A lot of people had him 3rd or 4th round. He went 2nd round. With these other 2 corners that they have, I don't think there's too much being asked out of him, barring injury, of course. But this guy, like I said, he's from Alabama, and he was drafted by Bill Belichick. So those 2 things put together, you got to expect him to be good. And even if he's not great, like I said, you have 2 other corners that are extremely good. So, and he's also got good guys to learn from in that secondary. And, I expect this team again to be good. I expect this team again to win the AFC East. A big question is, can they get that home field advantage? Because we know how good New England is at Gillette Stadium. When they got home field, they typically go far. And when they don't, they typically lose. So my question is, does those first 4 weeks cost them home field? Because at the end of the day, I think Brady comes back and they get home field. But if they go, 1-3 in their first 4 games, even if Brady comes back and only loses one more game the rest of the year, that still may not be good enough for home field. So, in my opinion, Garoppolo needs to go 3-1 to start the year. So, you lose that opener in Arizona, say, you need to win those 3 home games. That might be a lot asking the young guy to do that, but if they want to get home field, I think they need to go at least 3-1 to start the year. Unless Brady's going to come back and go 12-0, which is, even for Tom Brady, that's a lot to ask for. But this Patriots team still great receivers, great depth at running back. Question is, what can they do the first 4 weeks? But when Brady comes back, I expect them to be great. So thanks for checking in, guys. I'll be back tomorrow with another NFL team preview. And like I said, this will be a daily thing for the next month. This is my first video doing this topic. I'm going to try to continue to get better. But this is just for fun. And again, I'm not saying I know more than, I don't want to come across as me thinking I know more than other people. I just have a channel, and I'm just talking about something that I like and that I'm passionate about. So, if you're listening to this video, you quite frankly could know more than me or know just as much as me. So comment down below. I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear your opinions. It's not as fun when it's just me talking to myself all the time. I like getting some interaction, hearing some feedback, and I'm not, most of these teams I do, that's not my team. I watch football and I watch the games, but I'm not necessarily a big fan of a lot of these teams. So as far as my knowledge of these teams, it's probably not as good as the people that are listening to these videos that support those teams, Like when I talk about the Bears, I'll probably know a good amount. But when I'm talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars, I'm not going to know as much. And those people that are listening to the video that are Jaguars fans, you probably know just as much, if not more than me. So comment down below. It'd be appreciated. Don't forget to subscribe also to the video, guys. But thanks for checking in. I'll be back tomorrow. I'm out.